helping people on a whole different level. And I came to Florida, came to the Golf Academy. Of course, I had a plan. I wasn't going to just come here and try to figure it out, but I developed that plan and figured out, you know what, I'm gonna pursue that, because I knew that golf as an industry, we're the largest working sports organization in the world. Our revenue, the money that we manage or oversee or generate, is larger than all other spectator sports combined. So for you basketball fans, football fans, baseball, soccer, you combine all of those spectator sports, bring them together, they don't touch what we do. We do well over $300 billion a year. We do, I mean, golf is just ridiculous in terms of revenue. But what I saw, and it took some foresight, but I saw that golf did not have people that were representative of me. So around that time, that's when Tiger Woods came on the scene, but that was it, right? And then knowing history, Lincoln teaches you to learn history. Knowing the history of golf, I realized that there were fewer people playing golf at that time than it was 20, 30 years prior. And I realized that golf was regressing in terms of its diversity and inclusion. So I devised a plan and decided, you know what, I was going to go into this game, understand the economics of the game, understand the business of the game, but then understand how I can use this game to benefit the people who are most like me, right? And here we have it. Here I am. So the plan worked.
Yeah, I think something because one of the things I do want to talk about, like how golf can be used as a social capital.
Mm-hmm.
It's another point that we spoke about yesterday, the meeting before the meeting,
Mm-hmm.
And it was such an easy oversight, right? Because the
Right.
decision was made before the meeting, and
That's right.
the meeting is just to inform you
Right. Right.
that they're paid on the golf club. So when I didn't, it's something that we hear about all these different decisions and best place to do a deal with people having fun and
Mm-hmm.
around on the golf course, but like I never took in consideration the magnitude of it.
That's
Right.
right.
And I know that's something that you specialize in, and I don't know if you could speak a little bit more to
Sure.
that, particularly too how you're using that to influence execs and African American execs as well
Mm-hmm.
in the field.
Excellent, Ade. So in our conversation, it's a great conversation. I feel like I've known you forever, man. So thank you for that. And, one of the things that I talk about is, leveling the playing field, right? Oftentimes we are taught to work hard. We are taught that I don't care if you're a teacher, a lawyer, a doctor, you name it, anybody that's on this chat right now, whatever it is that you do, think about how often you've been told to just work hard and you'll get to the top. But what I kind of find out was that, that makes sense, right? And you should work hard. But I kept seeing people that weren't nearly as qualified getting ahead. And I learned something called social capital. And what social capital is basically it's establishing the relationships that help to transcend you through your career or through an opportunity. So if you think about the typical lawyer who is in the office, every day working 8 to 10 hours and thinking, I'm going to work my way to the top. But then on Friday afternoon, there's a golf outing between the one of the partners and maybe some board members. And I get these stories from my clients all the time. I work with a lot of corporate execs, and they share with me like, oh my gosh, you wouldn't believe it. Had I missed out on that meeting, I would have missed out on this major opportunity to grow in my firm. And what happens is, my friends, is, 5 hours spent with a decision maker within your organization is incredibly more profound and beneficial to you than 800 hours spending in the office. And I said 5 hours on the golf course can probably be more beneficial than 800 hours in an office, because what happens is you get to develop an understanding of who you are away from work. And what happens is people learn who and what you are. They learn about your leadership, your integrity, your risk taking. There's a whole number of things that can be determined just 5 hours spending on a golf course. But it's not just about on the golf course. I've gone with clients and friends to their private clubs, and let's say we're there on a Sunday. And if you look around, you pan the room, you see people there with their families. Well, inevitably, they aren't always just friends. Oftentimes, it's a junior partner or junior person within a company who's out with their family, with that senior person's family, and they're getting comfortable with one another. And once they get comfortable with one another, that's the key that makes that decision happen. There is empirical data. I've done some management consulting with Pope and Associates, and that's part of my backdrop. And Merlin Pope was a brilliant person, brilliant brother who kind of coined the term diversity and inclusion. And he did a study. He was working on his PhD at Yale, and he did a study on engineers, and he found that I'll make it a quick overview of this story. But at Procter and Gamble, you had black engineers, then you had white engineers, and inevitably they found that the black engineers, while they were smart and qualified, just weren't getting up the ladder as fast as the white engineers. Well, when Merlin did his study, he found that the black engineers, when they were faced with a challenge, they did what oftentimes we do. They run to the library, they go do their research, they go and try to figure it out. And inevitably, they'll figure it out, right? But the white engineers would pick up the phone, call that senior person that they probably played golf with or went fishing with or boating with and felt comfortable enough to ask the question. And they got, not only did they get the answer, but they got directly connected to the resource that would help them, further that answer and take it deeper. So when it came down to promotions, who's going to get that promotion? The pure problem solver or the person with the relationships? And that's a great example of social capital.
Yeah, I could affirm that even like the line of business that we're in right now, when we first started, most of our contracts were just based off our network.
Mm-hmm.
And it's through in any business, everything is a service business, right? So once you provide a service, it becomes based on someone either liking your service or not, and they making a recommendation to someone else. So it kind of ties into, and even us as we continue to develop our technology and entering some of these pitch competition and feeling like we are highly more in a better place than even people, a lot of our competition that is not even in a beta phase. It's still doesn't even have a product, and make it to second or third round of these pitch competitions.
Right. Sure.
And noticing that, we feel like the intelligence was there, the innovation is unique, but just still kind of missing that one thing to get us over the hump.
Absolutely.
And realizing that a lot of times the folks that actually were getting to the finalists were actually leveraging their relationship.
Imagine that, right? Yeah.
Leveraging their relationship. So, for myself, I think just being more comfortable being uncomfortable, because I'm really big on just genuine being connected with folks. I'm being better to understand that the importance of networking and being in those spaces to actually create that social capital, like the golf course, and actually, and other places as well too. But
sure.
That's all part of the paradigm of creating a business.
Yes.
So just as a jewel that you dropped, and anytime you hear a jewel that Anthony dropped, just put a diamond or put a major key alert.
Right.
Just a money bag sign, just so we know that we're on the same page with some of these takeaways. Because for myself, I'm just, knowledge is like food. You got to digest it, one
That's
bite
right.
at a time. So I just want to make sure we have these takeaways that are incredibly important for anyone that's ready to transition or trying to do your own thing. Some of the things that you must put in place. There was another thing I took, again, it's so interesting because our conversation I felt was short, but
Mm-hmm.
again, the knowledge of it, when I processed the next day, a couple of things that's kind of stood out to me. Where you, I do want you to address if someone's creating a 10-year plan, what are the first steps? But
Yeah.
also, you talked about uh, having your own personal board.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was a groundbreaking information, especially as Lincoln alums and creating that
Mm-hmm.
level of mentorship. Can you
Right.
just speak upon that
Sure.
briefly?
I start with the last person and then part of it, and then go back to the other parts. So I think a part of anybody's success, one key thing that I think has just worked for me, in my life and in my planning, is to develop a personal board of directors, right? And I recommend at least 10 people, 10 people that have far exceeded where you see yourself in 10 years. Um, and my personal thing is I found the oldest, wisest, most responsible, successful men and women that I could find to be a part of my personal board of directors. And I think the other piece is you have to really be honest with yourself and know what your strengths and most importantly, what your weaknesses are. And you want to put people around you that are going to help you be strong where you're weak, and they're going to help emphasize some of your strengths as well. Encourage some of those strengths. So, that personal board of directors for me, interestingly, yesterday was my 25th wedding anniversary, silver anniversary. My wife and I have been celebrating 25 years, and my members of my personal board of directors, my dear friends and older friends, I got some flowers just before this call, right? And because they celebrate that, right? They encourage that. They're all in that position and they want me to continue to be that. I think it's very important for us to surround ourselves by people that are going to, one, hold us accountable, right? And if you've got people around you that are not going to hold you accountable to your higher self, then you're wasting your time. That's just so key. I'm just being very honest and real with you. You're wasting your time. And those individuals, I mean, they call, I check on them, they check on me. They share things with me that I would have never figured out on my own. And these are highly successful African American men and women who really take an interest in me, and are invested in my success. And for them, I give a lot to them, right? I share a lot of perspective with them. It's not just taking, it's giving a lot. I spend time with them. We play golf together. Sometimes we just go have lunch, right? We just say, hey, let's go grab some coffee. We just go and sit and talk, and I listen, and they share lots of nuggets of wisdom. Happy to say one of my newest members of my personal board of directors, you all may know, is none other than the great Oscar Robertson.
Mm.
Right? Oscar Robertson is one of the greatest basketball players of all times. And when we get together, we'll have breakfast or we'll just call and chat. He shares wisdom with me, just how things were in sports back then, what he sees now. Just a brilliant, brilliant man. And he has a great family. It's just, I'm not good enough to have created all these things myself. These relationships have come to me based on my service and putting myself out there. And when you put yourself out there, people will recognize that and they'll gravitate towards you. So backing up in your question, one of the things that I want to encourage everybody on this call to do is to determine, okay, where you are in your career. You can be towards the end of your career or just starting. But I want to encourage everybody during this downtime, dig deep and use this time during COVID-19 to think about where you see yourself in 10 years. And I say, really, really, really push hard. Don't think mediocre. Think something huge, right? Where can I really see myself in 10 years? What are you passionate about? What do you think? What does God put you on this earth to do? And here's something key. When I talk about passions, it cannot be me centered. It's got to be other centered. What are you passionate about? Like you said, a day you've created a product that's going to help students, right? And yeah, you're going to benefit and you're going to grow from it and you're going to benefit financially. But at the end of the day, you're putting time and effort into serving somebody else and making somebody else's life better. So that's my challenge to everybody. What can you see yourself doing 10 years from now? Don't worry about the resources that you think you have right now. Just define what that is. What does that destination look like? You know, if a day said to me, Anthony, meet me at my favorite restaurant, and I've never been there before, the first thing I'm going to ask him is, what is the address? And I'm going to pop that address into my phone and I'm going to let that GPS drive me there, right? It's going to take me step by step. Inevitably, there might be some road closures or some detours, but ultimately I'm going to come back to that destination and I'm going to meet him there. And my challenge to everybody is to define what that is, because my partners, and I'm going to talk about them in a minute, I am going to donate two part one and part two 90-minute sessions on how to make that 10-year plan happen. But the first thing is you just need to define what that looks like. Define what it is first. Don't worry about how to get there. Just pop in that address and tell me what that destination looks like. And then we'll talk more about, you know, those two 90-minute sessions we're going to do afterwards.
Great. So for anyone that missed that, Joel, you have to, in order to be prepared for your future, you have to create a 10-year plan, right? And
right.
Not necessarily have the exact roadmap, but just be explicit on what you want.
Right.
So, you know, you put it out there, and the universe has your back.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting some. I think we probably have to like transition to like a
sure
question.
Absolutely.
Part of the session.
Mm-hmm.
I had two questions I see came up on the timeline. One person asked, how do you go about selecting your board of directors? And you have some scholarly books around you. If you can make some book recommendations.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And those that are hearing this right now, if you have any questions, please feel free to leave it in the comment. And we'll try to, we have like about 5 to 7 minutes to answer some of these questions. We'll try to answer as much questions as possible.
Great. So this is my favorite part of the discussion. I'd rather, field questions and answer those directly, and I'll stay here as long as you want to. I've blocked off the rest of my night. So however long you want to go. I know we said 30 minutes, but if folks really want to dive into this and ask questions, I'm open to do that. So how did I choose my personal board of directors? I chose people that I admired, and I think it ties into a lot of these books. A lot of these books that are around me many of them are biographical stories of men that I admired, leaders, people that I aspire to be and maybe surpass one day. But I chose people that far exceeded where I saw myself going. I chose corporate executives who had broken barriers. I chose athletes who were pioneers. I chose people that, again, as I said earlier, I chose people who were going to hold me accountable, and I chose people who were going to speak to my higher self, right? We have a great time. We have fun. We get families together, but at the end of the day, they hold me accountable. And that's one of the things that I really, really love about them. And they've just opened up doors that I would have never imagined. I didn't even know they existed, to be honest with you.
So one of the things, just thinking about the many transitions that you have that were all intentional, obviously they weren't easy, right? So one of the questions I'm noticing between like someone having their own plan and not going in the direction that they wanted to be, as well as, what were you thinking around those times when resilience and faith was the only thing that you had to hold on to in order to stay motivated?
You just said it. It's faith, right? You've got we talk about Lincoln, right? You've got to figure out, one of the things, what was Lincoln founded on, right? Lincoln was founded on that faith. So we are steeped in that. We are born of that. And I had to believe in myself when the circumstances didn't necessarily believe in me, right? You can imagine being in my industry, just for those who may not know, when I got into golf, there's 29,000 PGA professionals. At the time that I got into the industry, there was less than 1/10 of 1% look like me. Okay. So you would imagine that, and it wasn't until, the early 60s, 61, 62, where built into the Constitution of the PGA of America, and I have all that. I'll tell you about a good friend. Remind me to talk about Dr. Charlie Sifford, something I did with him a few years ago. Some of you on here may have been at the reception in DC, but Dr. Charlie Sifford broke that color barrier. And it wasn't until 1962 that African Americans, we couldn't even be members of the PGA of America. It was written into the Constitution that you had to be a white male. It was a white male only clause. Now, I was born in 68, so it was just outside of my lifetime. I couldn't even have been a member. So when you come forward and you say, okay, this industry wasn't even designed for me, forget flourishing, it wasn't even designed for me to be a member, to be a part of it, and to be able to get in and ascend to a level that 99% of the people that have had a 100-year head start don't even go. That to me takes a lot of faith and takes a lot of courage.
I just want to highlight for the folks that may have just joined us that Anthony, he's a PGA Master Professional, and that's probably the highest level of education you can actually get in the golf realm, especially from a business and economic side. And he's only one of 2 African Americans. Am I saying this correctly? That's
correct.
So,
and the only African American in the player development space, and the other African American, Richard is on the instruction and coaching side. I'm on the player development side, and the player development side is, sort of the growth and the economic side of the industry. And how do we bring more people into the game, or how do we manage? For example, as we come out of this COVID-19 shutdown, we've got to do player development in order to get those players back out there. I chose player development because I wanted to be able to get Black men and women, corporate execs, middle managers, students, youth, get them into the game so that they can understand not just the recreational pieces, but to understand the economics behind the game, right? And in using Black organizations, chambers of commerce, alumni associations, how do you use this game of golf to get some of that $300 billion that we circulate?
Yeah, so you hear that, start putting a golf club in your infant's hands, and that's basketballs.
Yeah, absolutely. No, actually, and so I'm an and person, right? I'm not an or person. I'm glad you said that. Have your kids play basketball, but put a golf club in their hand also, right?
Right.
I can probably count, like I said, Oscar Robertson, Steph Curry. I could name 20 basketball players, men and women, that play golf. So, play those other sports, but make sure that golf is a part of that menu of options as well.
I actually didn't. I always know that golf was like a wealthy kind of upper echelon sport, but I didn't realize the value. In your position, what would be like a great analogy for our younger alumni who may not be as familiar with the golf realm that you're in right now?
A great analogy would be, so while I've competed, but I didn't compete like Tiger Woods. So in golf, you have professional golfers, which would be Tiger Woods, and golf professionals, which would be me. Now, Tiger Woods is a PGA professional. He's in our membership, but his category is player. So I'm more, if you look at sports, I would be more in the front office or working in the front office of a NBA franchise, I'd be an owner, or I'd be a general manager, or something, in that NBA or NFL franchise. Whereas a Tiger Woods, he's out there quarterbacking, or he's the point guard. He's out there playing ball. Both are critically important, but I'm on the business side of it, and the administrative side of the game.
So